In a small African village, a young girl named Nia lived not as a daughter, but as a servant in her own home, abused by her stepmother, mocked by her stepsister, until a stranger walked into her life and saw what no one else did, her worth. This is a story of pain, resilience, and unexpected love. Stay with us till the end, you won't forget this. The night air was thick with tension, the faint sound of crickets the only noise that filled the small, dimly lit compound. In the far corner, a small hut sat in darkness, its lone occupant barely visible as she swept the dirt floor. Her name was Nia, a young woman whose beauty had once been the talk of the village. But that was before everything changed. Before her life was taken over by her stepmother, Amora, and her stepsister, Zainab. Nia's father had passed away unexpectedly, leaving her alone in the care of her cruel stepmother. From the day Amora arrived, Nia's life had been nothing but a series of humiliations. She was forced to do all the chores, sweeping, cooking, washing, and tending to the animals, while Zainab, her stepsister, lounged in the comfort of the house, enjoying every luxury. Nia's once bright and hopeful eyes had slowly turned dull, her spirit broken by years of hard labor and cruel words. "You are nothing but a servant here," Amora would say, her voice sharp like a whip. "Your father is gone, and so is any worth you had. You exist only to serve me and my daughter." As Nia continued to sweep, her thoughts wandered back to a time when life was simpler. She remembered the day her father had married Amora, and how he had promised to protect her from harm. But promises mean little when the one who made them is no longer there to keep them. Her thoughts were interrupted by the shrill voice of Zainab, who walked past her with an air of superiority. "Hurry up, Nia. I'm hungry," she commanded, her tone dripping with entitlement. Nia didn't respond. She simply bowed her head and continued her task, her heart heavy with the weight of injustice. She had learned long ago that resistance was futile. There was no escaping this life, not unless something extraordinary happened. Little did she know, something extraordinary was about to change her fate forever. One evening, as Nia was returning from the market, carrying a heavy basket of firewood, she heard the sound of a horse's hoofs approaching. She looked up, squinting through the twilight, and saw a tall man on horseback. His presence was commanding, his broad shoulders and confident posture unmistakable. He wore fine clothes, not the kind of attire one would expect in a rural village like hers. His face was handsome, his eyes warm and kind. He pulled his horse to a stop in front of her, and Nia instinctively took a step back. She had seen men like him before, those who were wealthy and powerful, but they were never kind. They never looked at her as anything more than a lowly servant. "Are you all right, miss?" the man asked, his voice soft but clear. Nia blinked, caught off guard by the question. She had never been asked such a thing before. "I'm fine, sir," she murmured, not meeting his gaze. The man studied her for a moment, his eyes scanning her tired face. Something about her seemed different, there was a quiet strength in her despite the dirt and exhaustion. He dismounted from his horse, offering her a gentle smile. "You shouldn't be carrying such a heavy load by yourself," he said, reaching out to take the basket from her. Nia hesitated. No one had ever shown her such kindness before. Slowly, she allowed him to take the basket. As he did, their hands brushed, and she felt a strange warmth spread through her. "Where are you headed?" he asked as he began walking alongside her. I live just down the road," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The man nodded, his curiosity piqued. He could tell there was more to this woman than met the eye. He offered to walk her home, but Nia hesitated, unsure. It wasn't safe for a woman like her to be seen with a man like him, especially when her stepmother had eyes everywhere. But for the first time in years, Nia felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Maybe, just maybe, this encounter would be the turning point. And as the man walked beside her in silence, she couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would change everything. The walk was quiet, but for the first time in years, Nia felt a strange sense of peace. The man's presence, though unfamiliar, was not threatening. His soft smile and gentle eyes made her feel like she wasn't just a servant, like she wasn't invisible. It was something she had forgotten, kindness. As they neared her small hut, Nia felt a knot form in her stomach. She knew what awaited her inside, the cold glares of her stepmother, the sharp remarks from her stepsister. Would this man still think kindly of her once he saw where she lived? The man, noticing her unease, spoke softly. "You don't have to be afraid, Nia. I can tell you're a woman of strength." She looked up at him in surprise. He had used her name without asking. How did he know? I didn't tell you my name," she stammered. He smiled, a knowing glint in his eye. It wasn't hard to figure out. Your beauty speaks for itself, but your eyes, they tell a different story. You've been through hardships, haven't you? Nia nodded, her heart heavy with the truth of his words. Life hasn't been easy. They reached her hut, and she hesitated before entering. "This is where I live," she said, her voice soft, barely above a whisper. The man studied the modest dwelling, his gaze sweeping over the small, run-down structure. It was far from the comforts he was accustomed to. But instead of turning away, he stepped closer. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "this isn't how a woman should live. I can see that you deserve much more." Nia didn't know how to respond. She had never had anyone say something like that to her. She was so used to hearing that she was nothing, that she didn't matter. Before she could speak, Amora's sharp voice rang out from the door. "Nia, what are you doing standing out here with that man?" Nia winced, knowing that her stepmother's anger would be swift. She could already see the disapproval in Amora's eyes as she took in the sight of the man standing beside Nia. The man turned to face Amora, his posture confident. "I'm sorry to intrude," he said politely. "I was just helping your daughter with some firewood." Amora's eyes narrowed, and she gave Nia a look that sent a shiver down her spine. "You're not to speak to anyone, especially men, without my permission, do you understand?" "Of course," Nia replied, her voice small. The man, noticing the tension in the air, nodded courteously. "I apologize for causing any trouble. I'll be on my way." As he turned to leave, Nia felt a pang of regret. She didn't want him to go. She didn't want to return to the cold, unloving life she had known for so long. But she knew her place, and it was clear that her stepmother would never allow such encounters. Before the man walked away, he turned to her once more. "I'll be back tomorrow. I think you deserve a chance to speak freely, to not be hidden away." With that, he mounted his horse and rode off into the night, leaving Nia standing at the threshold, her heart racing. What had just happened? Why had he been so kind? And why did his words stir something in her, a spark of hope that she hadn't felt in years? Amora and Zainab didn't say anything further that night, but the tension in the air was palpable. Nia couldn't shake the memory of the man's gaze, his kindness, and his promise. She hadn't been seen like that in so long. But what would happen if he came back? What if her stepmother found out? Would Nia be able to escape the oppressive life she had been forced into? The question swirled in her mind, but one thing was certain: the encounter with the man had awakened something inside her, a longing for a life of dignity, of respect, of love. And she wasn't ready to give that up just yet. As the night settled into silence, Nia lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if tomorrow would bring another chance at freedom, or if her life would remain the same. The next morning, Nia woke up early, her mind still lingering on the man's visit. It was strange, her life had always been one of routine, of labor, of silence. Yet, in the span of a single night, it felt as if everything had shifted. His words echoed in her mind as she performed the usual chores, feeding the chickens, sweeping the yard, and preparing breakfast for her stepmother and stepsister. But the weight of her burdens felt lighter today, as though a tiny crack had appeared in the fortress of her despair. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give her a glimmer of hope. Amora and Zainab were still asleep when she finished her tasks, so Nia had a moment of peace. She stood by the door of her small hut, gazing at the horizon, where the sun began to rise, casting a golden glow over the earth. It was a rare moment of tranquility, a fleeting reminder that there was beauty beyond the hard walls of her life. But the peace didn't last long. Just as Nia began to breathe in the fresh morning air, she heard the unmistakable sound of hoofs approaching. Her heart skipped a beat, and she quickly looked to the road, hoping, no, praying, that it wasn't the man. But to her surprise, it was. He was back. The man rode his horse toward her home, his presence as commanding as it had been the night before. He didn't stop at the gate but instead rode straight up to her front door, dismounting with a fluid grace. His smile was warm, and Nia couldn't help but feel a flutter in her chest. "Good morning, Nia," he said, his voice full of warmth. Nia's breath caught in her throat. You came back." "Of course," he replied, "I said I would. I don't break promises." She could barely contain the surge of emotions that overwhelmed her. She had never had anyone show such dedication, such kindness. It was as though the world had changed overnight, and she was suddenly seeing it in a new light. I don't know what to say," she murmured, her voice trembling slightly. "You don't have to say anything," he assured her, his eyes never leaving hers. "I just wanted to make sure you're all right." Nia hesitated, unsure of what to say next. Her life had been so isolated, so controlled, that she wasn't sure how to engage with someone who treated her with respect. But before she could gather her thoughts, Amora's voice rang out from inside the house. "Who is that man?" "Nia. What have you brought to my doorstep?" Amora's tone was sharp, accusatory, filled with the anger she always carried for Nia. Nia braced herself for the inevitable confrontation, but the man didn't flinch. He stood tall, his posture unyielding. "I'm sorry for intruding," he said, his voice calm but firm. "My name is Kofi. I've been speaking with your daughter, and I wanted to make sure she's doing well." Amora's eyes narrowed, her gaze flicking between Nia and the man. "I'm sure she's fine. But you are in the wrong place. She is not to be seen with men like you." Nia's heart sank as she watched her stepmother's reaction. She could already feel the weight of Amora's disapproval, but there was something about Kofi's demeanor that kept her grounded. Kofi, however, remained calm. "I don't mean to cause trouble," he said evenly. "But I've noticed something about Nia. She deserves better than to live like this, to be treated as less than human. And I intend to help her, if she wishes it." Amora's face twisted with fury. "You know nothing about her. She is nothing but a servant in this house, and that's all she will ever be." At that, something inside Nia snapped. She had heard those words so many times, but now they felt different. For the first time in years, she felt a fire rise within her, a spark of defiance, of a strength she hadn't known she had. "Enough," she said, her voice stronger than it had ever been. "I am not just a servant. I am a person, and I deserve respect." Kofi turned to her, a look of admiration in his eyes. "You are right, Nia," he said, stepping closer. "You deserve more than this. You deserve to be free, to live the life you choose." For a moment, everything went silent. Nia felt a surge of power as Amora's furious gaze bore down on her. But instead of shrinking, she stood taller, her heart racing. Amora sputtered, unable to respond. Her grip on control, the power she had held over Nia for so long, was slipping. Kofi smiled at Nia, his eyes soft with understanding. "If you're willing, I can help you. I can offer you a new life, one where you don't have to be anyone's servant. But it's your choice." The words hung in the air like a promise. A promise of freedom. Nia took a deep breath. The choice was hers now. Would she stay in the life she had always known, or would she take a chance on something new, something she never thought possible? Her heart pounded in her chest as she looked at Kofi, then at Amora, who was seething with anger. This moment would define the rest of her life. And for the first time in years, Nia felt like she had the power to decide her fate. Yes, she whispered, her voice steady. I will go with you. Kofi's smile grew, and for the first time in her life, Nia felt like she was walking towards something that was truly hers, something worth fighting for. As they turned to leave, Nia knew that nothing would ever be the same again. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where she could finally be free. And for the first time in a long time, she felt alive. Nia walked beside Kofi, her heart pounding in her chest. The road ahead was uncertain, but it felt less daunting than the life she had left behind. Each step she took felt like a small victory, a reclaiming of her life. She looked over at Kofi, who walked beside her, his confident stride offering a sense of security. He hadn't rushed her, hadn't demanded anything of her, he had simply given her the option to choose. And she had chosen freedom. As they left the small, oppressive compound behind, Nia felt a wave of relief wash over her. No longer would she be forced to endure the harsh commands of her stepmother, the cruel teasing of her stepsister. No longer would she be treated as less than human. But as much as she felt that weight lifting from her shoulders, she also knew that the road ahead would not be without its challenges. She was leaving everything she had known, everything she had grown up with, for a life she had never dared to imagine. Kofi led her to a nearby town, a place much larger than the small village she had grown up in. The bustling streets, the shops full of goods, and the lively atmosphere were all so new to her. She felt like a fish out of water, unsure of how to navigate this unfamiliar world. But Kofi remained at her side, his presence reassuring. They stopped at a small cafe, and Kofi ordered them both a drink. Take your time, Nia, he said kindly. This is a big change, and I don't expect you to make decisions right away. But I want you to know that you have a future here, one where you are treated with the respect you deserve. Nia sat down at the table, her hands trembling slightly as she took in everything around her. It was overwhelming, but it was also beautiful in a way she had never allowed herself to see. The vibrant colors of the marketplace, the laughter of children running through the streets, the smell of fresh bread in the air, all of it was so different from the monotony of her old life. I never imagined a life like this, she confessed, her voice quiet. For so long, I thought I was stuck. That this was all I could expect. Kofi's expression softened. You've been through a lot, Nia. But that doesn't mean your life is over. You deserve happiness, and you deserve to be loved. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. Nia looked down at her hands, feeling the weight of his words. For so long, she had believed that her worth was defined by the chores she did, the labor she performed. But Kofi was offering her something more. He was offering her a life of dignity. After a long pause, she finally looked up at him. But why me? Why did you help me? I'm just a servant. Just a girl from a poor village. Kofi smiled gently, his eyes meeting hers. You're more than that, Nia. You always have been. I saw something new the moment I met you, strength, resilience, a quiet grace. You're not just anyone. You have the power to change your life, and I want to help you see that. Tears welled up in Nia's eyes as she looked at him. She had never heard such words spoken to her, never felt so seen. It was as if a part of her that had been buried for years was finally being brought to light. She had always been told she was nothing, that her worth was in her servitude, but here was someone telling her that she was worthy of love, of respect, of a future. I don't know what to say, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. You don't have to say anything, Kofi replied softly. Just know that you have options now. And if you choose to stay with me, we can build something together. Something real. For a moment, Nia didn't know how to respond. She had never been given this kind of choice before. But deep down, she knew that this was the moment that could shape her future. She had spent years feeling like she was trapped in a life she didn't want, and now, for the first time, she had a chance to rewrite her story. "I want to stay," she said quietly, her voice steady with resolve. "I want to live a life that's mine, not one defined by others." Kofi's smile widened, his eyes filled with pride. "Then let's start that journey together." As the two of them stood up and left the cafe, Nia felt a sense of freedom she had never known before. The road ahead was still uncertain, but it was hers to walk. And for the first time in her life, Nia was no longer defined by the role she had been forced to play. She was defined by her choices, her strength, and the future she was finally allowing herself to embrace. The life she had once feared was now behind her, and in its place stood the possibility of a new beginning. A beginning that was filled with respect, love, and the promise of a future that was truly her own. And for the first time, Nia felt truly alive, knowing that she had taken control of her destiny and that the world was full of possibilities just waiting to be explored. This was only the beginning. What did this story teach you about self-worth and courage? Let us know in the comments below, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you've ever felt unseen, this story is your reminder, you matter.